The living room, where the family meets to discuss issues, any issue which may be bothering one of the family members. That's what we do each and every Tuesday on WAC 90.1 FM with Ricardo Mitchell and DJ Aaron868. We have casual conversations on serious topics, from sports to culture, mental health to economics, relationships to life lessons. Join us each and every Tuesday on WAC 90.1 FM. The living room, casual conversations on serious topics.
Hey, it is now 6 p.m. here in Trinidad and Tobago. I don't know what time it is where you are, but I'm glad to know you're locked onto the True Nation station, WACK 9.1 FM, where we are.
Culture crazy.
First and foremost, let's kick this off as we always do. Must give thanks and praises to the Almighty for granting us the gift of life and seeing another day. No matter what time of day it is, you must always
give thanks.
And secondly, we must say thank you to those that went before us, and we are not just talking about our ancestors, the original inhabitants of Trinidad and Tobago, because we all know, acts every iterate, and the state would be chest that Columbus lied, but also to our brother in music, Tony Prescott, where the P this week stands for
Palmer, boy. Palmer. Adija Palmer.
Right here now.
Hey.
First and foremost, the artist, well, one of the artists I worked with was carded to perform at that show.
I hear you.
Yeah, well, boy, we were supposed to perform at 9:30. Our call time was 8:30. We got to the Queen's Park Savannah I got there at 8:32 because I had some difficulty in getting in because they had to park in the bush in the Savannah. Right? The gates opened at 10:30. When we were walking, trying to go in the first time to go and talk to somebody to see what was going on, whoever was the guy by the gate didn't know who Joshua was.
The world record holder.
Nah, but he didn't have he didn't have a pan on yet. He didn't walk up with the pan the first time. But anyhow, right? That was 10:30. 11:30, we get, somebody coming from South around the show. 12:15, when we say, boy, that's it, we done with. The call and say, now we're going on 12:30. I promptly left at 12:45. As soon as we come on stage, I leave. Because I did not want to be around when the frustration and the alcohol had climaxed.
Right.
I feel sorry for that flight case that kicked down. I feel sorry for the event staff that were pelted with bottles. Even though the TTPS put out a release saying that glass bottles will not be sold at the venue.
Yeah, but anyway.
I don't understand how you get bottles to pelt in that scenario.
Anyway.
Right? But it was a myriad of issues. I have nothing else to say, boy. Beside, you are now locked on to the living room with yours truly, Aaron868. I remind each and every time that culture is my code. And I also sit here alongside my bro with no fro, a lot of flow, always on the go and in the know.
Ricardo Mitchell, the social sage on the global stage. But I want to revise my P word this week. I could use two words. One is pan, because I was most present for Fontain's 60th anniversary celebrations this weekend. Fantastic evening at Naparima Bowl. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was amazing stuff. There's a lot of talent. Pan is in good hands. But the other P that I could have used here was...
Like I never say that whole panorama season.
Alright. Now, well, I'm going to know. Right? And the other P word I could have used was personnel. Because clearly that situation this weekend was because maybe the wrong personnel was involved in the wrong positions. So maybe if there was the right personnel or some kind of human resource intervention, things might have run out differently.
All kind of madness, yes, honestly. I feel sorry for the patrons. I feel sorry for the vendors who would have expended a large amount thinking that there was a crowd to match their expectation. And
Right.
then it was met with a totally smaller turnout. And sadly, I feel sorry for some of the artists who would have still taken the opportunity and braved the stage and performed, but were met with a bunch of frustrated patrons who were well within their right to be frustrated.
Yeah, just nobody won.
Yeah, nobody won on Saturday.
Mhm.
Right? You know who else didn't win? West Indies. Oh my gosh, yes. West Indies lost to England in consecutive games. I really didn't expect them to make that 400.
I haven't gotten back. I haven't gotten the wind back in my cricket sails just yet. So we will see.
This evening, we are going to be joined by Mrs. Ruan Peyson. She's a seasoned HR consultant with over 20 years under her belt, helping Caribbean businesses build better teams and navigate the future of work. She's the founder of C-Suite Professionals, a bold voice in people strategy, tech-savvy HR, and AI adoption for small businesses. Whether it's hiring right, keeping staff engaged, or preparing for the digital shift, Ruan brings real talk and real tools. Boss lady, mother, and lifelong learner. She got the receipts and the rhythm. And clearly because she writes a real boss bio here. But
There's a boss bio league. Mhm.
yeah, boy. So let's welcome to the living room Mrs. Ruan Peyson to talk about HR things.
Welcome to the living room. Welcome to the living room. Welcome to the living room. Welcome to the living room.
And we are back after that lovely, lovely, lovely interlude from Vorish. You know, you have to make sure and roll your R's. And we had us roll them a little bit longer today because we have another R in the living room, right?
Mhm.
And this R, as introduced and advertised, is Ruan. That was the professional introduction, right? Let me get the personal introduction here. When I had my first foray in a now defunct, well, what we call Voldemort in the living room,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
It was during a vacation crash program. And I was sent to work in the labor office down by Garakara Park.
Mhm.
And there I met this lovely younger version of Ruan. And that was my first ever exposure to her. Then I realized she had two brothers who I just happened to become friends with after. Yeah, I'll just leave that there.
Let's go.
Yeah, so it does go. And we have always maintained a level of a friendship, both professional as well as personal.
Oh.
So when she reached out to me and was like, hey, I wanted to hang and come in the living room, let's do a HR segment. I said, nah, let me first do a HR show.
All
A
right.
full show dedicated to HR.
I like nothing better.
And,
HR work never done.
and introduce the people to the concept of HR, human resources.
Liking
So-
it people first in workplaces.
So, Ruan, before we go any further, welcome to the living room, first and foremost,
Well, thank you for having me.
right?
Lovely to
And-
be here.
And secondly, we are going to ask you probably the most important question that you're going to be asked here today. We are not asking you, what's the scene, jelly bean? What's the word, hummingbird? Or what's the gist, HR analyst? We are asking you, how are you?
I am doing well, excited because I love talking about people. And I love that we get the opportunity to clear the air where HR is concerned. Because nobody like HR, not even HR. So we're here to clear some air let everybody know that HR is about people first in workplaces. Productivity, discipline, and tolerance. The order of the day.
That's not
Yeah.
that's not the first three watchwords of Trinidad and Tobago.
Supposed to be.
You know what the other two are, Ruan?
We have 5 watchwords.
Yeah.
Well, four watchwords and a watch phrase.
Subsidy and here for the comments.
That's right. Yeah.
Recent editions. Loving it.
Yeah, so you had me at, I like to talk about people. I was like, hey, don't make, all right, well, let's mark on, let's get into people business. Yeah.
That is not the kind of
No,
talk about people that
it's
we
not-
no.
no sipping and spilling tea, nothing like that. No raps, no bacchanal, no.
No.
Oh, we here to talk about people.
Yes.
People.
People.
You know, I too like to talk about people. You know, the species and the social dynamics and interactions. I do. I approve. I do, however, Ruan, want to apologize because you should not have had to suggest this segment to Aaron. As someone who is both a personal and professional friend of his, he should have invited you a long time ago. I'm going to be scolding him for the entirety of this episode.
Well, remember what I said, nobody likes HR.
That is so good. But the thing is, Aaron has called me no less than 746 times or so to complain about work, right? So
It wasn't me.
I figured, you know, he should have wanted an HR episode long time.
You see, and that's one of the things. People often don't like to go to HR because when they do go to HR, it's one of 2 scenarios. It's to complain about their boss or to complain about money that they ain't get and they should have get. But that's not all HR is about. That's not the only reason HR is there in an organization. You know? And depending on your experience you've had with HR, it will color how you approach any HR professional going forward. So if you had that grumpy HR person who wasn't willing to help you, who wasn't willing to guide, who was always willing to throw the rule book out at you, then what's going to be your thought process when you're looking at going to HR? You going by anybody in HR? No. You'll quicker call Ricardo 800 plus times. I know you're being conservative.
I was being
To
conservative.
complain about the situation.
One, I'd like to categorically deny calling Ricardo so many times because if I did try to call that many times, 63% of those times he did not answer.
That is a fact. That would be.
No, he never
would
said
be a
that he
fact.
answered it. He said you called. He didn't say he answered.
Ron, you are the consummate professional. This is amazing. Spot on. Spot on. You have read the situation accurately, and I like the stance that you've taken. Go on. You only go ahead. This is me actively listening.
And secondly, I would never call to complain about my boss.
Ah.
Well, you know the fact that you're calling me a boss as opposed to, you know, your supervising officer, your team lead, or your employer. Maybe that's something we should take a look at, Aaron.
Supervising officer has a different meaning in the living room. Remember that. So anyway, we come to talk contracts. That supervising officer is a different kind of contract you're dealing with.
Yeah,
But-
the SO.
Yeah, the SO, right? So Ruan, let me talk some HR issues here, right? And the first thing is a contract. What is a contract?
What do you think our contract is?
See, let me bring back my inner POB from Form 4 here. A contract is the terms, mutually agreeable terms with offer and acceptance between 2 parties.
Very good. Your brain working still.
I quite Form 4 and how long ago that was.
So yeah, a contract is an agreement. And it's an agreement between 2 parties.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be between two parties or more than two parties, and there must be terms and conditions both persons agree to. A contract doesn't always have to be written, just by the way. Throwing that in.
All right. Well, you know what? Everybody here is big people. Most of us are big people here. There's a term that I learned very, very early when I started working at Voldemort back in 2001, straight out of secondary school. And it was called CYA. Cover your activities. Right? I'm trying to use the language to make sure Kenny don't kick us off. And how can you CYA when the contract is not written?
And that's the interesting thing. So you're talking about CYA, which is why you should have a written contract. That usually occurs in well-established businesses. But we have the parlor around the corner where the kid might work for July, August vacation because they're home. There's no written contract there. But because there's an agreement between the owner of the shop and the kid to come into the shop for a specific time, to stay for a duration that's agreed upon, and that the child, or well, it shouldn't be child, the young person will be given in exchange for their time something worth of value. It could be free snacks from the shop, it could be money, something worth of value. That's a contract. You're not always going to find that there's something written that exists. Luckily, the law does protect employees who do not have written contracts as well. The key, however, is, as they say, the proof is in the pudding. So there must be some evidence of you claiming to be working at a particular establishment or institution for X period of time.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
So in this case, actions speak louder than words.
Listen, Aaron is in so much trouble with me going forward, because he invited me onto the living room as a guest. This had to be like 8.5 or 9 years ago, right?
And you never left?
I never left, right? So I still waiting on snacks. I'm waiting on snacks, right? However, you did say that there are things of value, right? So like the young people and them out here, how are you supposed to get experience if you can't get work, and how are you supposed to get work if you have no experience? Yes. So is this where things like internships and OJT programs and that type of thing would come in?
No.
Right.
Why? Because an OJT program is something that's governed by different rules, regulations, policies, and procedures. And so it's an internship. You may go to an organization and be part of an internship, but not receive any compensation. No stipend, no money, no nothing going in your bank account. All you're doing is clocking hours, which you're going to say, I can put on my resume. Or if it's part of your school program, you can say, I have done my 30 hours of internship at X organization. That's why the contract has to explicitly state what is agreed upon between both parties.
I am going to do the majority of talking so that, you see, I'm not in the position to get in trouble the way Aaron might get in trouble. So let me ask the miserable questions here. So what you're telling me, right, is that things like OJT programs and internships supposed to have specific terms and conditions and specific outputs. Because one of the things that sent my hair gray was realizing that people are using OJTs as entry-level labor, but at the end of the training program, they have no evidence that they were actually trained in anything.
Warm bodies, right?
Yeah, that has been if you didn't know before, that is probably the 7th most upsetting thing I've experienced in my life. The fact that people are being thrust into and utilized in a training program, but you can't come out afterwards and say, well, I've had 100 hours training in this particular field or expertise or operation. So I'm glad
And
that
again,
you're
it
here.
depends on the organization, huh? And what I can say is that the OJT program, they do have officers that visit organizations to ascertain whether the trainees are indeed there doing what they've been engaged for. Whether that goes any further, I can't say because I'm not part of that program.
I'm not going to ask if any of those officers in the room with us right now, you know. But let me not be that guy.
Yeah, don't be that guy today. Try and be a little nicer, right? But yeah, you're supposed to have a clear understanding of what you're there for, how long you're supposed to be there for, what your hours of work supposed to be like, if you're entitled to paid lunch, and how long is that, if you're entitled to any other paid time off. All of that is supposed to be included in your contract. You need to understand what you're signing up for, and the employer needs to understand what they are signing you up for as well. So it's not a one-way street to say that the contract is just there so that the employer can say, I have a written document that you agreed to. It's there for both parties. It's there as protection for both the employer and the employee, or intern, or worker, or whatever you want to call them, depending on the environment you're operating in.
So you just mentioned, like in terms of the OJTs having a different arrangement to what a full-time member of staff would have. And let me go a step further. Now, some companies like to say, we gain a contract for 6 months. We gain a contract for a year. Then somebody might come and say, you know what, we're giving you an open-ended contract. Now,
Excuse?
yeah, and my point exactly. What is an open-ended contract like? Is there differences in terms of the word, the proposition in the statement, a contract for service and a contract of service?
Yeah, and you see those propositions, they're really very important components of what you're going to be called as, right? So when you have a contract of service, you are an employee. That means that you have an employer, you are protected by labor laws. Things like the Minimum Wages Act governs your employment. You are guided by the policies and procedures of the organization. When you are operating under a contract for service, you are engaged as a consultant. So you submit a bill to the company, whether it is weekly or monthly, and they pay you for your services. So you drive in your own car, you using your resources, you're not answering to a manager at the organization, you running your own show. Consultants are contracts for service. Those contractors who are hired by other organizations to go and do repairs for them. The technician that might come to your house representing a company. Those are contractors. So those are contracts for service. Once you engage in a relationship that is employer-employee, that is, you report to a manager, you have standard hours of work, you are salaried or stipend at the end of a month, that is contract of service. So, it doesn't matter if you're there for a specific period of time, like we like to say in Trinidad and Tobago, I guess a contract and is a 6-month contract or is a 1-year contract that I'm there for. Once you have the relationship that you report to a specific supervisor, you are using company tools in order to get your job done, that you have to be there between a particular period of time. The document says that you are working from the hours of 8 to 4 and you have 1 hour lunch. That is contract. Which one? of
Of
service.
service, yeah.
Yes, contract of service.
Mm.
Now,
That
I have
clear
one-
or it worse?
no, that make it clear for me. But I have one question to add to it now. You're saying defined terms, right? So time of work, place of work, all these different things. If there is to be a change to your contract of service, does this have to be communicated in writing, or it could be said, here we're going, done. Instead of coming to work for 8 from now, come for 8:30 now, you just take half hour lunch instead.
So you see, two things there. One, it doesn't have to be communicated in writing if it's agreed to by both parties, because remember we said that about a contract. But there is a change in your terms and conditions of engagement. So, going back to what Ricardo would have learned in his youthful days, CYA. If it ain't written,
You'll get bitten.
you will get bitten.
In the A for activity, yeah? A for activities.
Yeah, you will get bitten, right? A couple things that people don't really consider. From the time you start operating in an organization where, one, you force people to write everything, then there's broken down trust, then people start operating transactionally with you. So if I give you this, what are you going to give me in return? How is that building the workplace? How is that building the workforce? How is that building yourself in your career? Then you have the flip side of it, where you get a warm body and you're willing to give them any and everything because that's a task that you need to get done. That complicates things further. And then people move away from being willing and able to help to being, can you send me an email on that? Can you copy my boss in on the request? Or they send you an email just confirming our conversation. I will now be required to blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You know? If it's going to be a
Yeah.
permanent change, it definitely needs to be written in. If it's a temporary something, I mean, you can come to an agreement. The fact that both of you all are agreeing to the change, everyone understands what's required. But CYA, that's what we have to do.
I hear you, and I am sorry. I'm not saying that I've been traumatized, but I have learned that you can agree to something quite amicably with a co-worker, be it an employer or an employee, as the case might be, and then it turns out that I didn't agree to that. I didn't say that. Where you get that from? Well, all I'm saying is that I understand that yes, documenting everything can create an environment of mistrust. However, not documenting everything can also create an environment of mistrust.
The type of documentation you use as well is also important, depending on the organization you work in. So some organizations at the start of the year give people branded diaries. The branded diaries are supposed to be used in you carrying out your job and operating effectively and efficiently.
Right.
Those branded diaries is not for you to give your cousin and your aunt because she needs something to write her notes in.
Scream.
Generally speaking,
Oh, wow.
Scream.
it is for you to use it in the organization.
Oh, wow.
I just realized
I'm
why.
gonna get a cattle boil.
No, but it's, for a reasonably bright fella, sometimes that has astonished myself, it never occurred to me before that there's a reason that your diary, those work diaries and stuff, would be diaries. Literally, they are technically logbooks. They are logbooks. They aren't.
That's what they are.
Oh my gosh, that is a legally binding document because it's company material. Is identified as the insignia. There's a date. Some of them even have the times, the time slots. Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness.
I just want to publicly state for all the friends and family members that I would have given diaries over the years. I just want to let you know that that contractual obligation has now come to an end.
They have to agree.
It doesn't matter.
I've never gotten a diary from Aaron.
It doesn't matter who got diaries and who didn't. I'm just saying that it is now coming to an end.
Why haven't I gotten a diary? You know what Aaron has given me? Shot glasses.
Useful items.
So I don't want to write?
Practical items.
So I don't write, I just only drink. That's what you think about me, Aaron?
How many cups of coffee do you drink a day, Ricardo?
Alright, now this is a ad hominem attack. I'm not going on that road with you. I'm not going on that road with you.
Now, mind you, here now. This is getting very interesting because it is clearing up for us a lot of those unstated and also unanswered questions that we would have. Now,
you ever read your company policy and procedures? Because some companies do have policies and procedures related to diaries. And
now we do have one with
that. Some do say that all employees must receive a diary. I'm not speaking about the ones they actually prepare diaries to give out to clients, etc. But some companies do have policies that speak to the fact that all employees must receive a branded diary annually.
Now, we don't have a policy like that, but I'm happy to know if your company does have a policy like that, you could get in the comments and say something soon. Now, as we talking policies, this is a part for me here. We talking policies. There are policies that will obviously protect the employees, and there are policies that will obviously look after the interests of the organization. How does HR1 find a balance in terms of protecting the employee, or is it that everything had to be protecting the organization?
That's a nice question, Aaron. And I like how you phrase it too, because people sometimes say HR is not for the employee, HR is just for the leadership. But guess what? The leadership, they are employees as well.
Sometimes.
So,
they know that.
They are employees.
they know
so that means HR is there for them as well. And here's what. If you do not have employees that are happy, employees that are working to the best of their ability, what's the most important thing to an organization? A profit-making or profit-driven organization. What's the most important thing?
Profit and productivity.
Profit.
Yeah.
So if the employee not happy, what's going to happen to the levels of productivity? You're going to get bare minimum. You're not going to be maximizing profit, right? And if the company goes bankrupt, or if the company is in financial ruin, where's the employee going to be?
Out of a job.
Exactly. So while we want to say that, well, some people like to say HR is pro-business and they don't care about the employee, that's not what HR is about. The very name says it. Human resources. And I'm sure you've heard it before. People are your greatest asset and your biggest liability as well. Right?
Yeah.
Because if you have someone who's not happy in their job and they're not productive, or you've done something that they're not pleased with, what do you think is going to happen to the plant and the equipment in the organization?
No.
Yeah. You saw that just now? Right. Yeah. I didn't see it either. But if you have, and I know I might get licks for this, but if you have good HR, then you have an HR that is fair, creates a functional environment, supports leadership, and advocates for employees. That's what good HR looks like. How well your HR operates is also dependent on the goals of the organization and the leadership of the organization. Because HR in some organizations have a seat at the table where they're there making decisions, helping drive and guide the organization strategically. And there are other organizations where HR is not at the table. HR is just seen as glorified secretary.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask this, and I'll go in a step further, because there are many companies that have this problem here, and I'm blatantly calling this a problem. Is a human resource department mandatory in a company?
Are people mandatory in a company?
Is water wet?
Well, don't go there. Don't go there. Don't go there. Because we're not sure whether or not water wet or if water wets. So don't crack open that kind of worms. But
so here's what. There are people who get put in an HR department, but they're not HR professionals.
Right.
So when you ask if an HR department is necessary, I'm not willing to answer that question, because you can just be ticking a box and saying, I have an HR department in my organization.
No, only see why I did that, right? You also,
right.
So when I did it,
yeah. No, let go a step further. Is it mandatory that a company should have an HR personnel, despite the size of the organization, 5 people, 7 people, 2 people, somebody that handles HR issues, that is separate and apart from management of the company?
Yes. It doesn't have to be an employee of the organization. You can outsource HR services.
Hold on. So Miss Mabel Parler, who might be bringing on a couple, 2 youths for the July-August vacation, she should have somebody whose interest is in the relationship between her business and these youths.
She should. Why should she? Why should she? So you see, ignorance is bliss. The youths that she bringing on, are they of age to work? Is she allowed to pay them?
Right.
But nobody thinks about that. Miss Mabel business registered?
Right. She paying NIS for these?
You don't have to pay NIS. Remember, it depends on the salary that you're getting.
If I get paid in snacks, probably not. It's still payment. Aaron really did drop a roti for me the other day, you know.
You getting paid in roti? I hope it was a good one.
It was satisfactory. It was satisfactory. All right, so I own a business, small, medium, whatever size it might be. I own a business. My interest and objective is for my business to make money, right? As fast as I bring on 2 or 3 youths and I find they're starting to give any kind of trouble, I let them go and I look to replace them with anybody else willing to come and take the work. Right?
2 or 3 other youths.
2 or 3 other youths. Because you know what? These youths out there, they're hustling, they're about that gig economy. They'll take, they want the little coin, they want the dust, they want to make some money because they wasn't making money before. And I treat them how I want. Right? You come in to do one thing and I have you doing everything.
And nobody complaining.
And well, they're complaining, but what they're going to do is either they do it and they get paid, or they don't do it and somebody else come in and take the work. And the reason I'm asking that question is because we are at the start of June, and the June, July, August vacation is around the corner, and there are youths who are going to be looking for little odds and ends. So I want to find out what measures are in place to protect this new wave of potentially exploitable employees that are coming into the market.
Right, so Ministry of Labor has this nice little unit called the Labor Inspectorate Unit. that anyone can contact. Anyone can call them.
So you can tell.
You can tell.
Asking you a question here. It's a weird question. You're probably not going to answer me how you want to answer me, because this is on the radio and the internet is forever, right? But you think Trinidad and Tobago whistleblower policies encourage people to take advantage of these types of spaces?
Which whistleblower are we talking about? The
Like
one
you're on
the,
camera.
the law that hasn't been accepted, or the policy that the companies operating with?
Yeah, the policies. I ain't going, we ain't going so far to capital L law thing. The policies, but I mean, I hear that the resource might be available, but I mean, with the people here, you do these things work?
And again, that's why I say ignorance is bliss. Because the Labor Inspectorate is just one unit that you can have access to, right? I'm sorry, but the Freedom of Information Act also exists. And real people just go to FOIA for all kind of little Mickey Mouse information.
Okay.
Right? And on top of that, you also have the Equal Opportunities Act, and they also have a unit that does investigations and reports, and you can be legally charged for those things. You know, one of the things in Trinidad and Tobago that we aren't very aware of are things like the Minimum Wages Act, things like the Companies Act, all the legislation that exists to help employees and employers. We have a separate court to deal with those things. You know, it doesn't go to the same place. And that should say something to you about how we treat or what we think about employees and employer relationships in Trinidad and Tobago. Does everyone avail themselves of it? No. But it's not that it doesn't exist. It's there. We can use it.
Right.
Simple things like access to paid annual leave. Is paid sick leave allowed? Do I have to pay my employee for sick leave?
Do you?
Do I have to pay my employee do I have to give my employee annual leave? And what's the minimum annual leave that I have to give my employee? And do I have to pay them? Is it legal that when my contract is at the 11th month, they end it and then send me home for a month without pay and call me back a month later under terms of a new contract? Are those things legal?
So wait, you telling me break shift and thing is that not legal?
Break shift?
Yes, and you're literally bringing in people to break other people's rotations so that they don't qualify for.
That's not break shift.
That's a break in service.
That's
Break in
break in service.
Yeah.
Break shift is legal, especially if you're looking at OSH. There are requirements for the maximum time that anyone can work. But,
Right.
yeah,
From break in
what
service.
happened was...
Yeah, like people, you know, anything after like 12 weeks, you know, you're eligible for permanence, and then is, you know, 11 weeks you're working and they send you home.
No,
for a
after
week
12
and
weeks, you're
things.
not eligible for permanence. That's one thing. It depends on what you're hired to do in the organization, so you need to get that straight, right?
I know why you're saying exactly that.
However, there have been rulings in our very own industrial courts that have said once there's continuous employment and proof that it's the same job in the same location doing the same thing, then the person is to be treated as a permanent employee in the organization.
And let's say, hypothetically, right, it was, I don't know, a state-owned oil company or something like that, and you have been literally reporting to the exact same desk to perform the exact same task for a period of time. What would be the period of time that would have allowed for one to become, you know, treatable as a permanent employee?
Did the state-owned organization have a union and governed by a collective agreement?
It did. It did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that call for weekly paid, was it 3 months? And for monthly paid staff, was it 6 months?
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Yeah. I know why I say 12 weeks. Sometimes 13 or 14, depending on the month. Anyway.
3 months, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
It is.
I'm just saying that the system, both the system and some of the things put in place to balance and regulate the system have failed many people. And we have a culture that doesn't even bother to engage the system or the counterbalances and measures because of its record of failure.
But if you don't stand up and speak out, then it's not going to be documented that someone has stood up and spoken out. How did these cases end up before the courts? Somebody stood up and spoke out.
I have a question for you as a HR professional. What if your representative, the person that you bring this situation to, this person is legally obligated to represent you and your matter? What happens when they also are a hindrance to your pursuit of justice? I mean,
did you pay them money to represent you legally? Or is this just because they are the majority bargaining body in your organization?
Now, if they are the majority bargaining body that you have paid membership to, if you are a financial member of this organization, wasn't representation one of the things you would do as a member? So many questions. So many questions. Anyway. I like this. I think we should, I agree. We should have an HR segment. I mean a whole segment, because I'm pretty certain I could come up with maybe 48 to 50 questions a season that might require some HR input. Like I like to tell you, I already designing the your intro flyer and finding a cool name for the segment, everything. Like all those aside, I honestly believe that we need to be educated as to what our rights are, as to what systems are in place for. We need to be empowered, and we also need to find a way to regain the trust, because there are people who what they go through trying to utilize the system is as bad as the reason they went to that support system in the first place, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, one of the reasons that even people who would protest for justice, the people who would stand up for their rights, they can be eroded because sometimes it feels as if you're up against, you're in between the devil and the deep blue sea.
Yeah, because I mean, if we just take a step back and we look around us with Voldemort being where it is, did it have to be there?
Ooh, child.
And what was the tipping point? Right? And just looking at things like unions, which I am all for, but the unions of our nation, are they progressive?
Ooh, child.
Are they learning continuously and adapting to the changing face of the workforce?
Father, help your children, though they might fall by the side of the road.
Not once have I heard the term gig economy used. Not once have I heard. Anyway, this is not. Sorry. We will have a lot of time to get into these things. All I'm saying is that I think this is important.
I wanted some yellow jackets in Trinidad and Tobago, but it was the wrong yellow jacket.
Oh, child, things are gonna get easier. Minding my business. Minding my business. But yeah, I approve. I want this to become a segment because there are so many places we could start from and so many things that we could start just encouraging the people to take a little more seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I like the way you talk. This is the first time, honestly, I'll tell you, you have restored my faith in human resource as a tool, as a mechanism. Because I ain't lie to tell you, I am generally a very unbiased person. You can ask her, I will cut something straight down the middle. But HR has let too many people down over the decades. I'm not even saying years, I'm saying over the decades. Because sometimes they try to offer people sound counsel to navigate the thing, and then only to realize that the place that you send them jam them up just as bad or worse than the thing that they came for. You know, so this feels like I'm feeling it. This feels like a good starting point. This feels like
So I will tell you that there
air.
has been a big change in HR in general.
Mm-hmm.
And the change has come because there was a change in the workforce. We're not dealing with the same workforce.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So how many organizations have you heard have fancy names for HR? Chief People Operations, People and Culture, Employee Engagement, Employee Experience. Why the shift? Why the change in name? What's in a name? The shift and the change in name is because there was a stigma attached to it, and there has been a change in paradigm.
A rose by any other name would smell just as sweet.
There has been a change in paradigm.
And Brandon,
So
it's
gone are
about
the days when
perception,
somebody
so-
would sign up for an organization and they're thrilled to be in the organization and they stay in there from age 18 to age 65. Gone are those days. My supervisor watched me too hard and I walking out.
I good day, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, good day. It's not a long
Yeah.
service award and them kind of thing
Nah,
again.
nah.
What are you telling me?
Why not?
Yeah, boy, dog boy. I out there now.
You get two cuts from the supervisor, and who you feel talking to? I look like one of your children then? I hope Pancho.
Yeah, you're outside like Carter. I am. Yeah, just saying at the end of the day too.
Yeah.
At the end of the day too, if terms and conditions not met, and the way that you deal with me as an employee, as a member, and a representative of your organization, these youths, this generation, these people, they're not playing that nonsense again. Taking
Not at
licks.
all. And
Taking licks
you
from-
interviewing me? I'm interviewing you.
Yeah, I'm a huge advocate for that.
I'm interviewing you. Why should I
That's
come
right.
and work for your organization? What does your organization have to offer me?
Yeah, and can I work from home when right? Why should I waste
That's-
4 hours in transit when I could do that is a half a day a week work I could do from my house?
I'm very pleased that our current Prime Minister is an advocate for work from
home. Yeah,
Is
let's
she?
hope that it it permeates.
Because if one of the highest offices in the land can effectively work from home, why can't other jobs which are not required to be in office do the same? We have proof that it can be done. We just went through 2.5 odd years of it being done.
I'm saying.
right? You have a whole survey that told you how many hours are wasted in traffic for a year. Come on, man. My only concern is the security of documentation and documents.
Okay.
Which we have stuff for.
It had thing for that.
We have thing for that.
And with that being said, I have to come up with now the perilously close phrase that a lot of persons do look forward to. That'll be a perilously close to the end of today's program. And I think we could say it that conversations like this would not be foreign to the living room anymore. We are going to have, we don't know what we'll call it, but we are going to have more talks of human resource, stressing on the human.
Aaron, you know what you do, you know. Well, if I was given trouble before, me and Ruan gonna cause problems here. I mean, sorry, fix problems here.
We're fixing things.
Fixing.
We're fixing things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not, no.
So I'm a disruptor.
I could tell.
Little bit.
A lot. Ruan, any closing remarks? Now I know you offer a suite of services. So tell the persons a little bit more about what you do and how they could get in contact with you should they need these kinds of services.
Sure, yeah. So the name of the business is C-Suite Professionals because everyone can be a member of their own C-Suite. Primarily, the business seeks to advise small, medium enterprises and advocate for the adoption of AI, some digital transformation, getting your cybersecurity registrar and equipment up to spec, and we encourage persons to place people first in their workplaces to ensure that you have a productive environment. So you can just hit us up on LinkedIn, C-Suite Professionals, IG, Facebook, of course, and you can always just drop us a line at info@csuite-pro.com.
Nice. Ricardo?
Yeah, I already following on the gram here, then I'll follow you up on the socials and thing. And yeah, let's get this segment going because there are things to be addressed, and I'm glad that I have an ally in addressing them. Thank you very much.
Yes, you have an advocate.
An advocate, correct is right.
Not just an ally, an advocate.
That's what we're talking about. And anytime Kenny say he don't like what we're doing, I could say, well, it's really Aaron brings you on the show, you know. This is Ricardo Mitchell, the social sage on the global stage. Thanking you for joining us in the living room. Remember, guys, the hourglass is opaque. We don't know how much time remains, so whatever you're doing, be good and stay safe. Right? Thank you so much, Ruan, for honestly, you stirred something in me. Like I really thought I'd put some of these issues to rest, but now I feel as if I could more healthily re-engage them so that I could help people navigate these spaces that they are in now. So I really do look forward to having you on contributing to our segment in the living room. Thank you.
You're welcome. And if you can't be good, at least be careful.
If you have a closing line every time. Anyway, Aaron?
Thank you very much, Ruan, for taking time out of your schedule to spend with us inside the living room. I apologize for Ricardo's behavior, not on Ricardo's behalf, but on my own, because as my friend, you are my friend, Ricardo is my acquaintance. I have to apologize for that, and I do have to bring that acquaintance line back after last week.
I deserve that.
Shots fired.
Right? So I must remind you each and every time. I do remind you each and every time that culture is my code. And I also tell you that love is a currency, so spend some today. Let somebody know you love them, guys. Mr. Desmond is up next with the big band, and I'll be back on Friday. And here now, Tobago is next week, all you. Get all the act together. Get all the tickets and let me go to Tobago. not to celebrate with Kenny, but let me go to Tobago and have a great time in Tobago. And also celebrate with Kenny. Keep it locked.